Okay, make sure we're recording again for the half of our session. Okay. Yan, magbabalikan ng mga tao. Okay. So while waiting, so I think kinonfirm naman ng iba that you guys can hear me. That's great. I am going to, I'm sharing na my screen. I'm not sure if this time ba you are guys seeing it weirdly. Is it cut off ba? Is it not aligned properly? If it's not aligned to the view, just let me know. But for now, I assume it works fine. I'm going to check and see our chat view so that if there's some questions, we are to start in a minute. And I'm not sure if there are any questions from the previous session. We can spend 5 more minutes, I guess, to answer them. If you have some questions, go ahead and write them down. There may be some questions that are related to layout builder or maybe views in particular. Hopefully, you're able to appreciate more of that. I assume if there's no question, then I'm good. Okay, I'm going to start now. So this is Drupal 8 theming or theming for Drupal session, afternoon for Drupal Camp Manila 2020. You can call me L. I'm the guy who talked earlier as well about getting started with Drupal. And for those who are new or just joined the call, I'm currently the community lead for Drupal Pilipinas. That is the nonprofit organization in the Philippines that serves the Drupal community as a whole. I'm the current lead also for the Drupal Camp Manila 2020 organization. On my work, I actually work for Pantheon as an engagement manager. And I'm more of a number of volunteer work then for Drupal. Okay. Now, since we're now gonna talk about theming, we need to see a bit of some kind of background for folks who would be joining here. But this is not meant to say that if you are not having this background history, have these experiences, you are not allowed to be part of doing theming for Drupal. So it's our goal today is understand the concepts and appreciate the structure and organization of how to theme with Drupal where you can see now that if earlier you were able to appreciate how to create content structure, how to create customization on how you display and how you come up with a semantic way of providing your content. You know? Because I think it matters that your content first should be semantically correct. And if it's semantically correct, you now have the power to come up with a visual look that provide more power. There's this initiative called Naked CSS Day or CSS Naked Day. I don't know if you've heard of it. Um, so what happens to that activity if you search for that? So last April 9, a lot of folks um, removed their CSS for their site, right? And why would someone do that? And the objective is your site still good when it comes to um, just, I know, no mark or no styling or no JavaScript? If it's just compliant with just being correct markup. So a lot of folks join in, even Dries, founder of Drupal, join in. And it's surprising to see that even if you see their site not having any CSS at all, it's still readable. The order of content is correct. So it's really important to um, have that background of HTML, how to see those semantic views. Now, another requirement to at least cover for our participants today is to understand the use of Drupal and finding the right modules or themes in Drupal. I mentioned this a bit earlier when we were doing the a morning session. So there's a page where we can search for modules. You can also search for themes. So try to open that in your view right now just to uh, have it prepared. But among all the available entries there, what you need to understand is you need to also install what we call Composure. Okay? So Composure is the PHP version of a package manager. And if you want to learn more about it, you could go to getcomposer.org. And this is now the default way of installing everything for Drupal. Okay? So when I say install everything for Drupal, um, you simply go to your Drupal code base, okay? And in your Drupal code base, you just run the command composer require and the name of the project you want to download. So in this case, Drupal slash the name of the project you want to download. Okay, so to give that demo, so here I cloned in my local machine the copy of that site that we were working on earlier. Okay, so in Pantheon you can download your files locally via CFTP, or you can use Git, which is for me much easier, where you can commit changes and all that. Okay. Now, what I'll do is try to install something in my project. So in my sample here, I want to install um, what I call Path Auto. Path Auto is something that you can um, do some automatic URL alias. And we can find that project. You can go to drupal.org/pathauto. Oops, sorry, pathauto. Okay. So Path Auto is the official machine name of the project. And it says here you can automatically create using tokens and all that. Now, if you go to the project, the installation um, instruction is this. You type in Drupal/pathauto. So let's see how it works. So I'm gonna type composer require. That's the way to install using Composer in Drupal. Drupal/pathauto. Okay. And this is something that maybe if you haven't done this, if you haven't downloaded this earlier with Drupal, this is the time to maybe download Composer, make sure that it's working in your computer. If not, it's okay. You can follow later on to run Composer. You can still download the files manually, but I will not do that for the benefit of doing what's recommended and correct. No? So you can still do that workaround to download the files manually and put it in the folders. The good thing here, and if you run Composer with Drupal, is that it automatically detects where the file should be saved. And now that we're talking about Drupal on where the file should be saved, let's try to open a Drupal project. Okay, so this is the Drupal Camp Manila folder that I've been working on. Okay, so a dami folder. So there's so many folders here. Now, if I go here, you can see there's a folder called core. Then there's Drush, modules, etc. Okay, so modules are installed here. And if it's something that you downloaded from Drupal.org, then you should see a folder that's called Contrib. If it's something that you made on your own, you can use the folder called custom, and you can create a new folder here called custom. We won't be doing any custom module development today, but it's for the benefit of someone who maybe want to do that. So that's where you put your folder. So custom element. Okay. So I don't need that. I'm gonna remove it. But for themes, it's the same um, structure. So you go to your folder, themes, and you add something there. So later on, we'll see more of that once we get to the theming part. Okay. So Composer, I installed it. And if you actually run Composer, what it will try to do is download from the repository of Composer or Drupal packages where the files are coming from. It generates the file locally and saves the file to its correct path. Now, some of you may have tried it already and you have experienced a super slow or maybe a very slow download process. I can understand that it's going to be slow a bit for me because I'm sort of running Zoom. It really affects my computer's performance in somehow. I suggest, so I'm going to show this project called Composer Parallel Install Plugin. What it does is, by default, Composer runs a linear kind of download. But if you use Composer Parallel Install Plugin, this is called Prestissimo by a guy called Hiram. You can install it in your local machine, and you can expect that whenever you run any kind of Composer command, it will always do a parallelism kind of thing. So here's a demo of how it works and how it's installed. So if you want to install it, you use Composer Global, which means available across all your projects and your whole system. And if you run a Composer install or a project create, from 288 seconds, it becomes 28 seconds. That's super fast, right? So almost more than 10 times faster. So it's really nice. It's a pro tip that I would suggest to everyone to use for doing Composer. So this is gonna be my recommendation, to use Composer and install it now if you haven't done so. And this would let you appreciate more of what you can do with Drupal. Okay, so what we'll cover today is to understand what are themes exactly, how to choose a theme. There are many out there in Drupal.org. Maybe that's all you need, or maybe you need a framework where you can build something on top. We'll come up with something from scratch later, and also come up with a sub-theme in a way, sub-theming. we will do something about Twig, have a primer about what Twig is about in Drupal 8. And later, I want to spend more time on trying out two famous themes in Drupal that's probably being used by everyone. And most likely, this is the base theme that you would use forever, maybe. But probably you can create your own. Okay. Okay. So theming in Drupal 8 after learning modules and Composure. So I've mentioned this before. Themes are what Drupal websites compose of to come up with styling. It composes with ways to template your sites. And you could probably come up with a theme with just a CSS file. So definitely can do that. Rather from starting from scratch, we recommend that Drupal themes start from an existing HTML framework that you have built or pre-built, so that your role as a themer is just to really override these changes using the necessary templates or maybe just a new style.css file. Okay. So the term and definitions to understand, have you seen this earlier, the appearance section where you can install Drupal themes. The theme folder, I've shown this a while ago, the folder. Now learning about YAML file. If you guys are familiar about JSON file, they're somehow of same purpose. These are usually for configuration file. I'm going to show more of that. We also have Twig, which we'll define more later. You saw about regions and the admin theme. You saw these earlier. So this is just to refresh that these terms are going to be reused as we run the project. Okay. I already mentioned earlier that if you go to your Appearance tab, you can configure theme either being a default or an administration theme, where the default theme applies to the public-facing presentation layer, while admin theme is meant for your users who try to edit, content, create, do some admin tasks, probably take out those unnecessary tools or content that show intended for the public-facing users. So you've seen that earlier. I'm gonna just refresh this page now for the site that you were working on earlier. So it's under Appearance for those who haven't seen it before. So if you already have an installation, so here the default theme is Bartik. And a section in Drupal lets you define the administration theme. In this case, you are using a default code 7. Okay, so with that, you know now where your themes are. You can see that you have themes available in your folder. If I was showing you the code template earlier, where does these themes actually lie on? Say, so here in core, you can see there's also a modules folder. You can see all those modules that are part of core. And then there's the themes folder, where we have all those tools that we were working on. There's Bartik, Claro, there's 7, and then there's Stark that we were able to see in the list. So all of these are actually found there. Now you might be wondering why are there some extra themes in that folder. These are actually base hidden themes that created for core. So you might want you can disregard this if you don't want to worry about that. But these are available themes that can also work, but it's not just available in the administration theme view. Okay, so I'm going to show how we are going to choose a theme. Okay, so if you go to Drupal.org, you can actually find a number of themes, both for default themes and administration themes. Okay, so I'm going to try that. So what I'll do is, if I'm in Drupal, you go to build and download. You should be able to see the themes folder here. And if you go here, it directs you to the list of themes available or project theme. You can also click the theme tab, as you can see in the download extend page of the site. And from here, you can start searching for a number of different themes available. Okay. So the way this view works is that this shows the most popular, the most installed theme in Drupal. And this gives you an idea which ones you like to try out first. Okay. I would suggest also if you're using this view, you might want to change this to only apply specific to Drupal 8. Sometimes the theme may be only specific to Drupal 7 or older versions of the theme, although these are very seldom. From here, I can see that I have Bootstrap 3 for Drupal. I'm going to open that. And then I have another one called Adminimal, which is a responsive administration theme. I'm going to take a look about Bootstrap here. And it says a number of features. They talk about different tools. And they even talk about additional Drupal 8 special modules, which is great. Okay. Now, if I'm going to install this, this is where your knowledge of Composure should kick in. You can download the file, or you can follow the instructions to install Bootstrap using Composure. So I want to try this to our site. Okay. So I'm going to try this using to my site. So the way I want to do this is open my command line. I now have a copy of my website code. And I'm going to try to run Composer require. Let me just zoom this in a bit, I guess. And then Drupal Bootstrap. Okay. In the documentation, it says you can define a specific version. That's only because I was looking at that specific version. But you can really install just like this, Drupal Bootstrap. What it will do is just pull the latest version of Bootstrap. Okay, so I'm gonna use that. I'm just gonna run Composer require Drupal/Bootstrap, and similar process earlier, it will double check where the file's coming from and be able to run successfully. Now I'm gonna look at that other page I opened. It's called Adminimal. It's one of the most famous administration theme too. If you read it, they say you can override custom CSS for your page. There's even a design called, or a menu called Adminimal menu. There's also a version where you can actually run Adminimal material, where it shows you in a view that looks like Google material design. It's great. Okay. So I think I want this too. So to do that, I can actually try to stop this, right? I'm gonna clear this out. And actually, you can actually install both modules at a time. You can just type Composer require and run another Drupal/adminimal theme. So as what you have here in the machine name is the same name that you would use to install that module or theme. I'm gonna run this, and that should be it. Okay. So sometimes all these themes have a different view and look that might already match on what you do or how you would like to set your site. So just like this one here, I'm gonna go ahead and view Symfony's theme. So maybe you are trying to build a site where it looks like a corporate portfolio website. Maybe it's a new company or maybe a new agency that you've opened. So here, if you're gonna look at the homepage of that page there, or the homepage of that theme, they give you out the features and initial look of how the Symfony's theme look like. There's a nice demo as well for the theme that you can take a look at. And this serves a nice reference and prove that you could actually come up with something. And sometimes theme developers create variants of their base themes. And in this case, someone created a business responsive theme, a creative responsive theme, and professional responsive theme. All of these are available, and um, these are really open source tools that you can add or use. The good thing about Symfonies here is that it's based on Bootstrap. Okay, it uses the same Bootstrap that I was running earlier. So sometimes a theme may be a theme that was created over the top or on the top of an existing Contrib theme that we have in Drupal. So that's nice to know. So maybe you can have and use the default Bootstrap theme and then be able to use a modern theme like this one. So I'm gonna install it later. But for now, let's try and check if my installation is done. It's done. Just to show you what happened, here I ran Composure and then it installed 3.21, there's 1.5, so on. Okay, now I just want to show you sometimes themes and modules that you install, if you actually use Composer, aside from installing the actual module you installed, just like this one, it also installs dependencies that is required by that module, just so that you don't have to re-download these files for you. So running it in Composer is really nice because it's able to do it that way. Anyway, going back, so I'm going back to my Pantheon site, and if I go here, it's not yet here because I haven't uploaded the site. So I will commit this in my repository. So for those who are not yet familiar with Git, it's no problem, but you can just use SFTP to upload your files if you like, or if you're working local, then you're good to go. But this is to show you how a workflow using a Git version control should do. So you can use a shortcut, git commit am or git add first all the files, and then git commit. Dash M stands for what message you either commit. Install Bootstrap and add minimal. And I'm going to push this to my server or in the Pantheon dashboard. Okay, so I'm going to save it here, and it's going to show it like that. Okay. Later, probably after the break, we'll configure my Visual Studio Code so that we don't have to redo this setup over and over. I'll probably show you how to sync this using SFTP to be faster, but I just want to let you know that the preferred method of running this is through Git. Okay, so I have pushed it, and in Pantheon, it accepted the code sync that I just made. The server is now pulling in the site. I would want to wait until this actually completes in Pantheon so that nothing wrong would happen. And I can see that message I have run earlier. Once I've done that, I could try and refresh the page here. And if everything went fine, you can see now that my Bootstrap and add minimal themes are now available. Okay. So I want to use this instead of my current theme. So you remember my theme earlier? I was using Bartik, and I don't know if that's something you would say really look good, right? So I'm gonna change this now. I'm gonna click install and set as default Bootstrap free. And I want to use add minimal now too for my theme. However, as you can see, it's not working. It's because not yet installed. So I'm gonna install this now. And I'm gonna select add minimal under my administration theme. So I'm gonna press save, and that's it. Okay. So one thing that you would immediately notice is that the look and feel of your theme is a bit dark. Some folks probably prefer that, and some of the views are configured differently now. If I also look at the view page, it's a bit more sleek, unlike the rounded edges earlier. I can probably go to add minimal 2 and configure something to see if there's some additional entries here. And that's it for add minimal. Meanwhile, let's go check out our homepage. Let's refresh this and see what will happen. If things, I would expect that a number of things might become broken. So what Drupal will do is it will try its best to translate all of your themes settings from the original to the new theme that you've chosen. And the reason why I have to highlight that it tries to translate, because remember, if you are using Bartik, you actually have a block layout that's going to be different now using a different theme. Each theme will define their own regions, which will affect and impact your block layout. So here, I'm going to look at Bootstrap block regions. And we can compare this with the Bartik regions, just for appreciation. So let's try to compare this maybe side by side. So I've opened here the block demo view for Bootstrap. One thing that we could probably immediately notice how maybe more, I guess, limited the number of regions the Bootstrap default theme has. If you remember, for footer, I remember we have a lot of them. So there's a footer last entry, then there's a 4-column footer at the bottom, and then there's featured bottom first set here. And here, it's just one single footer. So a number of things are not here. I don't also see additional headers or navigation views, just like this one. So the primary menu, header, secondary menu, that's unlimited. Okay. So so watch out for that. If you're gonna do and choose different themes, you might want to take a look at the regions. But it's really not a problem because anyway, later on we'll get to know how to actually customize your theme so that you can create more regions. If you want to copy the number of regions that you actually have with Bartik, we can definitely do that with Bootstrap or any other theme in particular. Okay, so that's about exploring Contrib themes. I'm just gonna go and check that additional tools that add minimal and Drupal symphonies are added. So let's gonna try that on the last entry. So Composure required Drupal slash Drupal 8 Symphonies theme. And in add minimal, I remember they mentioned you might want to use add minimal admin menu. Okay, so if I'm gonna take a look at this, what is this for? It says it's meant for a better menu. So maybe I want this too. However, it's only working for Drupal 7. So nope, I don't want that. I can't. I would not use that here. However, it says here that if you want the Drupal 8 version, you should actually go to admin toolbar, add minimal admin toolbar. Okay, so that's what I want. I'm gonna go here. There it is, Drupal 8 version. There you go, I wanna use this. The feature here is that there's now some hover action that lets you see almost every menu. If you remember, if we were working on our site, we don't see those sub menus up until to the form view modes. So I think I really want this. So I'm gonna install that. So this is called add minimal admin toolbar. And I'm gonna do Drupal slash add minimal admin toolbar here. And I wanna test these two. So I now have Bootstrap. I now have Drupal add minimal theme. But then I'm gonna extend the features by installing more modules and themes. I'm gonna use now Drupal 8 Symphonies, which is also based on Bootstrap. I've installed admin toolbar, which lets you come up with a nice admin menu that saves you a lot of time. So I use Composure. It runs here. It downloads a file, and it tries to check if there's no conflict or etc. It's not already there. It's just wait for it, and it's going to complete in no time. Okay, so I'm going to give you time now to just take a look at these recommended themes that I've written down online. And I'd like you to just take a look and see if things are going to be helpful for you. For example, one thing that I may have not highlighted immediately is this thing called Drew Admin LTE. If you're someone who may have worked with dashboards, um, if you're someone who may have worked with a number of projects where it involves dashboards, so there's this thing called Admin LTE. So I'm going to search that. And Drupal Admin LTE is actually a theme that lets you come up with the use of Bootstrap 3 Framework 2, but intended for making things like a dashboard, making things like an admin view for your content. And there's a bunch of developers who made a different version of it, but you can try them one by one. I personally suggest this one, the Drew Admin LTE underscore theme, simply because they have a better support for the sidebar menu. But you can definitely use both sides here. This one is good because it has a more fluid thing here. But the problem is it uses the old jQuery update now module, which I don't like. So here, Drew Admin LTE. There's a lot more, and I'm going to give you maybe a couple of minutes to just give time to see these recommendations and immediately check it out. And maybe you want to use it now immediately on your sandbox site right now. Also, if you have no questions, feel free to put in chat and take this time to also have a quick break to take have some questions and so on. Okay, so try it out, search for it, and see you in a few minutes. Okay, trying to get back now. Do we have questions? Oh, thank you, Dinesh. Yep, I'm hoping that this is something useful for beginners. Another question from Steph. Do we have, or is it possible to have multiple themes for your site? For example, like a different theme for a specific page. Okay, so the answer is no, simply because the Drupal system tries to load one theme at a time, but you can definitely create a different theme for a different page. You can actually theme a specific page directly in your theme only for that page by using templates. So I wouldn't probably um, install an entire new theme because it has a lot of things that it tries to load. Maybe that other theme loads another set of scripts Drupal allows you to effectively come up with your own structure in themes. If you want to load only a specific CSS file on a specific page, a specific JavaScript file on a specific page, it's possible. So I think that's as good as coming up with a different theme. The only problem is maybe you're thinking that everything that you need is on that other theme, and you just want to like copy paste that and download it into your existing site. I myself wish that is something I could do. But no, what you'd rather do is once you see later how we can define themes, we could actually just create a template file that's specific to a page and apply those settings accordingly. Okay? So not possible, but with the objective of a different theme for a specific page is possible, or different look rather, not a different theme. Okay, good question. Okay, so again, what you need to understand here is that you can go to Drupal.org, find your theme. There's a lot of theme out there. I recommend trying out the popular ones like Bootstrap. Even though it's a bit old, it's actually using a Bootstrap 3 framework. Although we have Bootstrap 4 tools available, if the most mature tool is Bootstrap, if I would find something. And to prove that, if you see, there are even some modules that were added to specifically work with this theme. So that's really good, and that's really helpful. Okay. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next section, okay, which is to understand base theme. Okay, so Bootstrap is something that we call a base theme because if you see, it's just blank. It really has nothing, and usually it's used so that the lack of CSS styling only gives you that Bootstrap available kind of classes, and just change the color scheme and change the groups scheme. And for those who are familiar with modern front-end development, maybe you are using Sass or less, there are some base themes out there that actually lets you configure or has built-in support for Sass. So that means it's a theme that you just have to edit a Sass file and already has some available scripts to generate your style or minified CSS file. And if I'm gonna give you my recommended base theme, and these are also based from Bootstrap, okay? So the Bootstrap 3 framework is out there. There's also Bootstrap Barrio, and there's also a version of Bootstrap Barrio that works with Sass. And for me, I guess the most comprehensive is Radix. Okay, so if you're gonna look for them here, you can see here Radix, and all of them has their own perks. But what I like about Radix here is that it has Bootstrap 4. It runs using Sass. There's already some modern ES6 or ECMAScript 6 or modern JavaScript built in, and it has browser sync built in. So for those who are in the vibe of using modern front-end development tools, scripting, that would work. We're gonna run this a little bit later, but this is just to introduce you that it's being used even by those modern distributions that I was talking about a while ago. So it has a very straightforward way to install, 6 steps. It tells us what to install. You can just run npm install. It uses Webpack and Laravel mix. And then you just use run launch. So we're gonna try that out later on. But it's good to know that in Drupal, aside from just looking for themes, a lot of developers are investing on some stable starting base themes where as a designer and as a developer, that's probably what you want. You could probably find a theme that has everything, but you'll end up changing everything anyway. I think that's duplicate work rather than just go ahead and straight painting your base theme. So if you're going to start working with Drupal, aside from looking for actual popular themes, it's a good thing to use the keyword base theme, and you should be able to see a number of available base themes. Bootstrap is one, and a number of entries will show up here. Um, and this one too, the very popular adaptive themes. Okay. Now, I know that I've been talking about Bootstrap like since earlier. There may be some folks here who may have a love-hate relationship with Bootstrap already. I just know that it's one of the most popular base um, themes or framework out there. If you are curious if there's something else aside from Bootstrap, I think the most or the next popular is Foundation. Oops, sorry. Drupal Foundation theme. Okay. So the Foundation theme is actually made by the group Zerb. It's called Zerb_Foundation. It supports Drupal 8 as well. They have multiple versions here because they are supporting both older versions and newer versions. It's really nice. There's a lot of special modules with Foundation. It may look like a bit of complex. It may look like super helpful for you. But if you're someone who have worked with Foundation before, you are definitely going to be happy with this. So built-in CSS has support. Um, there's some additional modules that lets you create uh, uh, special widgets or blocks and so on. Okay, so really, really useful. If you are not the Bootstrap kind of person, you want to try something new, I would suggest running Zerb Foundation. Okay, so that's it for base themes. Um, so the next question probably is, what kind of theme should I use for my project? Do I use a theme that's just pre-made? I can probably look for a number of themes that's already pre-made here, just like the business portfolio theme and all that tools that I mentioned earlier. Or should I run a base theme, right? For me, the answer to that depends really on um, your project, and that is because you need to understand if you as a developer, are you going to work maybe on a team? Are you going to work with a number of people? Are you going to work with a really UX and UI designer who decides which color, who comes up with mockups and all that? If these things are considered, you will probably realize which fits best. If you're probably a solo developer and you have a very, very quick and simple project, I would probably just use any available modern theme in there. So symphonies or super themes out there, you could probably use that. And if you are working on a larger project where you have more time to actually custom fit everything, and you also have a nice mock-up that you just need to follow, it would be easier if you just start with a base theme. So think about these things when you are gonna work with Drupal. Both have their own promises, both have their own pros and cons. I will not say always use a base theme. I will not say that just use an available theme or even find a paid theme maybe somewhere. I will never be able to really suggest unless we know what kind of project we're working on. So we're gonna work on contrib themes that are both for default and administration theme, or we're gonna do a base theme, which is something you can also build on for a default or administration one. Okay, so with that, We're now to the next section, which is building an actual theme in Drupal 8. So you might want to brace yourself a bit because um, this might be a bit um, lengthy in terms of understanding the key concepts. But I promise you that all you need to know and all you need to understand is to get the key structure of what the theme looks like in Drupal 8. So here we go. So first, I mentioned about the folder location. And if you are going to create your theme, it's under the themes folder, and you have to decide if your theme is under contrib or custom. Anything that comes from Drupal.org has to go to themes/contrib. This is to let you see which are the themes that you actually created against the themes that are coming from online in Drupal.org. Someone can try to actually just install your files under themes without really using contrib. And actually, that's going to work. Drupal loads everything under the themes folder, even if it's on the first level. But for coding standards and file structure standards, it's better if you follow this subfolder setup. It's going to help you later on. And it's also helpful for compatibility with modules and so on. Okay. So if you've created your custom theme, you would probably create a name for it. You decide a name for it and put it in your folder. Okay, so let's try and do that. So here, I'm gonna go to my Visual Studio Code and I'm gonna go to my themes folder. I see all my contrib files that I have, but I don't have a custom folder yet. So I'm gonna create one. So create custom folder. So I'm gonna add this as custom. Okay. Inside, I'm gonna create a new folder. I'm gonna follow the instructions online called fluffiness, and that's all I need. Okay. This is your first step to create your theme. It's very important that the name of your folder is gonna be unique. It can't be another Bootstrap folder because the way Drupal loads your assets and files, it follows a unique name of the folder. So if you have already a name that's existing in Drupal, it would cause errors. It will probably not be loaded and so on. So remember, if you're gonna create a custom theme, you would have to name it uniquely. You can name it whatever you want as long as it's in lowercase, doesn't have any incorrect characters, no spaces, as long as it's unique and follows the folder structure standard. Okay. So that's for the theme folder location and the directory name. So it's really important that you do that. Okay. Now, the next thing to understand is to create what we call a info.yaml file. Okay. So coming from my project here, I can create a new file, and I should name this fluffiness.info.yaml file. Okay. This file lets Drupal read and understand what this theme is for, its name, and what are its features. So if you take a look at this example here, the name is Fluffiness. It's a theme, and it lets you know if which file it's or what core version it's compatible for. And it even defines what are the available regions that you are going to use for your project. So remember, we were talking about regions earlier, comparing Bartik and Bootstrap. This is the first start where you can start defining this and come up with your own. I'm going to copy this and put it in my file in here. I'm going to paste, and that's it. I want to highlight this section here, base theme. Now, while we're not yet in self-theming, I just want to highlight that this sample here is already defining if this theme is actually inheriting any existing themes in Drupal. You can always use, you can use something like Bootstrap here. And if we do this, it means that it will inherit the Bootstrap Contrib theme that you created. Earlier, that fluffy info YAML goes to classy, and classy is this entry here coming from the Drupal core hidden theme. So that is why if you've heard earlier that it's important to define your folder uniquely, because it's not just being read by Drupal but also being read by other themes and modules in your site. Okay, so for now, let's put it back to classy, because the next level of classy they say is fluffy. Just gonna try that, and that's it. If you save this theme is already available in Drupal. This is something that you can already see with Drupal. This is something you can install with Drupal, but it does nothing because it doesn't have any style. It doesn't have anything, but has these regions. It will work, which tells me what to do next. Okay, so in the theme folder structure, there are a number of files that you can create. And in this sample here, this is a view of things that you could use and add your folder structure. So as you can see here, beside info YAML, you can define also what we call as the breakpoints YAML. What this does, it lets you see a number of breakpoints already defined separately. And this is used by Drupal to also do some breakpoints within the application. So this is really useful if you need to have some views where it has to use some custom breakpoints and all that. And it's integrating now with your system. There's also a file called libraries where it adds things like if you have external scripts that you like, JavaScript or some charting tools and so on. There's also the fluffiness theme. You can add. All of this is to define a structure that Drupal says should be followed by everyone. You can see here that there's a CSS file folder, it's a JavaScript file folder, and also an images folder. At the end part here, there's called the templates. We will talk more about later. You can see here that it uses Twig file. This is something that you could use for things like customizing a view per page without using maybe Layout Builder if you want. If you want to customize the look and feel of a specific node ID, that's possible. Okay. So to get back to this, here's a list of the definitions for everything. So I mentioned already the theme info YAML file. I mentioned breakpoint and libraries. I'm not going to read all of the entries here, but what's important is what to know what's the base and important. So all of these four are the base thing that you need to add. The screenshot and logo SVG is basically what you see in the admin view earlier. So if we're going to go back in appearance, this photo that shows up here, okay? And you can also see a logo that's like a favicon or the default logo on your website. So you can define that in code, which is nice. So I've said CSS and JavaScript, and there's images and templates. Okay, so that's all you need to have to come up with a working template. Okay. So we will probably not have enough time to discuss or come up with the real complete theme at the end of this, but we will try to at least come up with like a homepage setting, a different setting in the view, and be able to copy that in here. Okay. So enough with theme folders. We now move to regions. So you remember, there's a lot of regions in Bartik, just like in the screenshots shown here. We already said and know that this is a place where you render blocks. Something that you use for regions are footer, sidebar, header. So in your theme, if you want to have a reusable code-based template, this is where you want to really come up with really nice regions. Okay. So to define a theme, you come up with your region metadata. You've seen that earlier, which we have defined in here. And you now create a page.html.twig file, and you can see this page.header code where you define all those entries. Now, to better appreciate this, you can see a number of default regions, and I think it's best for us to take a look. What did Bartik do anyway? So let's try to take a look at Bartik. So take a look in this folder here. I'll go to Themes under Bartik, and let's see how it implemented here. So I'll go to info.yaml. Drupal said this is all the regions that you've defined. As you see here, so many. And it says that these are actually implemented by the page template. So if I'm gonna look for the page template, it's under the templates, and there's some page.html.twig. So here it mentions what are the different regions that were highlighted. So if you want to see the page header, it's actually under page.header file or Twig indicator. And I will gonna talk about Twig a little bit later. But you can see here that page.html, it looks like just HTML, right? So there's div, and the only difference here is these curly braces that's added inside these sections. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna talk more about Twig later, but this tells you that in Drupal, it uses Twig as a template engine so that you can modify reusable HTML templates and add these nice template code so that you can insert logic into HTML, come up with loops, and also insert things that you would want based on your configuration. So in this case, all of the regions that we were defining earlier, and if you are gonna take a look here, it kind of follows suit, right? So here in this HTML file here, if you want to create your custom template, all you need to do is come up with an HTML file and take a bit of naming convention of what region you've created. So in this case, the naming convention for setting up a region is page.id here. And to know how we actually get into that, let's go and open our let's go to take a comparison here. Let me zoom this a bit for appreciation. So you can see here, the name in region, there's a key value and then there's a label. In Twig, you just have to use that. So page.header, page.primary menu. And this means you can now reuse all of this with your template. Okay. So that's super nice to know that if you are gonna define templates in Drupal, or regions rather in Drupal, you just have to, one, create your info YAML file, decide how many regions you want to be used inside your theme. The more complex may be good, maybe not, but as long as it achieves your desired outcome and also content creation maneuvers on coming up with visibility, posting fields on where, and so on and so forth. And then what you do is create HTML files, rename them into Twig files, and insert and follow the Twig syntax code, and you'd be able to come up with that view. So it's not really that hard. It's very specific to Drupal, but it's really, really useful because it lets you as a developer be able to, instead of coding this by hand, we just come up with these pseudo names and insert it to your Twig file. Really, really useful. That's all you need to do when defining regions. Okay. So for that sample, um, that's for Bardic. Um, all of these default regions are added using your the HTML file. Okay. Later on, we'll understand more um, about the hierarchy of Twig files. But for now, just keep in mind that these are HTML files that you just modify a bit so that they are reusable for your project. So that's Twig and, oh, sorry, that's region. Okay. Okay. So you're happy with your regions. You probably create 100 of them. No, just kidding. Probably like, I think for me, the best would be just around, max would be 12. Um, and the reason why, if you count the number of regions you create and just compare with Bardic, um, putting a lot of redundant sections really doesn't help you as a designer. Because anyway, if as long as they're stacked on a single column, you modify them using your block layout. So you don't have to really worry about stacking them together. As long as you have the correct division of rows, if you read your region layout, that's all you need. If you really need a sidebar, then create a sidebar. That's all you need that's all you want to do. And the good thing though with Drupal is that if it's not needed, it's being expanded and it's not being fixed there. So as you saw earlier, okay. So maybe you need a little bit less. For me, this is like maybe the maximum for me for coming up with regions. Okay, so the next, still have two more things here to share. One is to add style sheets in JavaScript. Okay, so one, if you want to create style sheets or CSS in JavaScript, you need to also follow a specific naming convention. Okay, and these CSS and JS files comply with your theme. And to attach them to your library and pages, you can specify specific Twig templates. Okay. So it's very similar to what we've said earlier. If you actually define CSS style sheets, you can just reinsert them to a specific section on your site. Okay, so just going back to Bardic, I'm going to take a look. Did we define some CSS files here? We did. You can see here, there's some specific CK editor style sheets. You can add it here. So that's great. We're able to follow. And if you're going to look the CS file folder, you just need to follow which are base elements, okay? Which are base components. And all of these are something that you could follow in the template guide and documentation. You don't need to memorize this. There's even some tools where it will be generated for you. But it's good to know that it's strict to follow this. You shouldn't be putting your CSS files anywhere. We want to just put it in the base CSS folder. To appreciate this more, let's take a look at the theme that we just installed, which is Symphonies. It already has a number of CSS files enabled. Let's take a look at this file here. So you can see there's a base CSS file. There's a custom media CSS file and all that. It doesn't have SCSS though. So let's see how it was defined in Drupal. So, oops, this one. Okay. Okay. So here in the theme info YAML, it's not loading anything specific to files or modules. But if you look at the template, you could probably see the different layouts here that would work. I'm going to take a look at Node here. You can see that these samples, you can see that some node entries are being inserted. There you go. Let's try to just take a look at with the entry here. Okay, here. So there's some metadata being inserted. So CSS files are going to be added here. So I'm not going to bore you with Twig unless we move forward to the next view later on. But just stay put. You're going to see this in a while. So CSS files and libraries are defined as well. And to see a specific way on how to define a library, you can see here in the libraries file, you define the entries here. You can take a look at the sample of the different CSS and JS files in the Radix file. So if you go here, go to libraries file here. So the main CSS file was coming from Bootstrap here. So they called Bootstrap for their base file because it's a base theme. And then it added the base CSS that we were working on earlier, the one that I've shown you here. So here, okay. And then for dependencies like jQuery or some tools, you can define using this code here. It will pull out jQuery stuff for Drupal specific views. You can also define library specific to specific or library specific to views or features or modules. You can see here because there's a flex slider installed in this theme. There's also font awesome. This is really nice to see if you're a team developer who was obsessed on making it really look clean and readable for your teammates. And you could probably go crazy on coming up with names and naming convention. But the key item here is that you are able to group your libraries, CSS file or not, into specific cases, specific sources, specific purpose, and specific setup. So that's probably something you would be able to easily troubleshoot if there's something that you'd like to review later on. Okay. So that's how you define a library. So you go to libraries.yaml and define the sources one by one. And as I've shown earlier, you can now put these files using your Twig template or insert them globally using your in the script. So here in the theme info YAML file, to make those libraries available, I'm not gonna define them into my info.yaml file. So here, if you use your info YAML file again, you could go to, let me just close this down here, info YAML. There's the libraries entry here. So Drupal 8 symphonies underscore theme, and then Bootstrap. Where did I get this? In the libraries file. So let me take a side-by-side view of that to appreciate better. So Bootstrap, oops, wait, not this one. There you go. So this is the libraries file, and then this is the theme info YAML file. So Bootstrap, there it is. Global components, there it is. Smart menus, there it is, and flex slider and so forth. So you will start to see how modular theming in Drupal at this point. That you can always define themes granularly. You can create very small CSS files that has a very specific purpose, and go ahead and define it in libraries file. And then if you need to load it on a specific page, you go to your template file and also define it properly on your theme. So really, really nifty, really, really nice. It probably takes some time to get used to it. You don't have to create some complex stuff. That's why in my sample here, you were just creating 2 libraries for fluffiness, just global styling scripts, and oops, sorry, just global styling scripts, and that's it. No other file to be added. Okay, I'm gonna take a pause a bit now to maybe clear out a bit of information upload there. So, what are the process or what are the steps to creating your own custom theme? So number 1, choose a theme name, and that theme name will be your directory. It has to be unique. It has to be not conflicting with any of your folders in your site. So find a unique name that you could do. That's why a lot of folks are maybe using bootstrap underscore whatever, Radix underscore a custom ID name there. So just to make it unique, especially if you're using sub-theming. The theme name will now be reused across all your files. And the most important one is the info.yaml file. That's all you need to create a working theme. And now, if you start working on your actual theme, like libraries and CSS, you can follow the guide that we shared earlier. I'm going to share during the break that very long guide about theming. The way we are presented here today is to break them down easier so you can have at least a nice intro on how you'll be able to create a theme and to sort of gauge yourself on how long it would take to build a theme. Because the question here is that, do I want to build a theme? Because there's some base themes out there. There's some custom themes out there. So maybe, I don't know if we're gonna create a custom theme on my own, if this too much work. But if you create your own custom theme, it's gonna be more simpler, lesser files. If you noticed earlier, I was showing you Bootstrap files. There's a lot of files there that you don't understand yet, right? So there's probably some merit if you already understand how to create custom themes. In the future, if you probably mastered every parts of the theme structure, you could probably create the most lightest theme ever, and that will make your fastest website ever. Okay, so I'm gonna take a quick break, and I'm gonna post in the URL on uh, or gonna paste a URL of the Drupal 8 theming guide or user guide. I'm gonna take maybe 5 minutes just to take a look on maybe some questions and also take a quick break for myself. But for that link, I kind of lost it in my notes, but here, I'm gonna paste it here. It's quite lengthy. There's a lot of items there. I've only shown you the first um, four sections of theming in Drupal 8, but that should give you enough of a primer on how you could actually start working with building a theme. If you follow this, the minimum requirements is done. You should be able to have the theme. Maybe you just need the CSS file, that's all you need, and that should work. Okay, so with that, let me take a break. If you guys take time to read and also figure out some questions, try out creating a custom theme maybe during the time, or if you followed me. But I'm not really forcing you guys because there's a lot of files involved. Usually we take this out with a longer session. Okay, so see you in a couple of minutes. Quick break. Thanks, guys.
Project
Okay, couple of or 2 minutes more. I just want to check. I switched um headphones. Can you guys still hear me? Is it still working? Okay, good. Thank you, everyone. Um, okay, so um, so for this next section, we are getting a bit more advanced again, um, going deeper into building templates or theming with Drupal. And before, when you were working with Drupal 7 or older Drupal versions, we were just using PHP template back then. But PHP template didn't really look good uh, in the end compared to modern templating engines out there. And if you are a front-end developer and you have been doing front-end for a while, it's probably something that you have encountered, templating engines. It's everywhere. There's something with Python. There's something with um, JavaScript. They're everywhere. Um, One thing that happened with Drupal a few years back is that we converted from a base customized Drupal code base. And when I say customized code base, everything in Drupal was made from scratch. It's it's something that is the Drupal developer created, right? However, in the world of PHP, there are a number of tools out there like the Symfony project. Symfony is a very nice PHP framework to build robust applications. It utilizes and maximizes the power of PHP so that if you're going to build applications, you are already compliant into standards and it works well with multiple systems. And along with Symfony is a project that we call Twig. So if Symfony is a framework for building code for PHP, Twig is the built-in templating engine paired with Symfony. And it has a nice view on, I'm showing you right now the website of Twig. It has grown into a very, very um, um, dynamic community of users, not just with Drupal, but with other projects like Laravel or Zen framework. Although with Zen they have, and Laravel they have their own um, templating engine. So let's understand how Drupal actually used Twig templating. Right. So Drupal allows you to override every single HTML file that's created for every part of your markup. And it means that if you have a specific page that you want to modify, you can follow a simple convention and you can target that page, and this template would only apply to the specific page. It can apply to all nodes, it can apply to the whole site, and the Twig hierarchy defines a certain kind of naming convention that you just have to follow. Sometimes we call it the theme hierarchy or template hierarchy. So the top naming conventions for the Twig, and you could also see that somewhere in the theming setup, the order of which how Drupal loads the template is of the following. So obviously the base of everything is HTML, and that corresponds to that HTML um, head template, right? The next one is page template, regions, blocks, and you can see the pattern here that
If it's a bigger markup tag with a larger scope, it's being low first, which is it's a natural set of no. So to appreciate this better, it's better to show to you, because it's quite long, the different naming conventions that you have. So here, if you want to load a base template, you just use what we call html.twig. So this means that this HTML template provides markup for this set of tags up until to the um, the main HTML tag. Okay. However, you can override the base template that you said by simply following an operator for the next set of files. So in this case, HTML -- internal view path. That means the name of your path. So in our project earlier, that's products, HTML -- products, or HTML about, and HTML everything. Okay. This is for you if you want to really customize the layout and really not use the custom layout builder at all, because probably you won't need this if you are already comfortable with layout builder. But if there's something that the layout builder can't do and you want to really put it in code so that no one can touch it, because layout builder is in the database, the configuration, you can actually use Twig here. So it's really nice to see his HTML, then node ID, and then the path. Okay. So you can imagine this as simply targeting based on the URL. So define the page, define the node ID or the URL, and that's it. That's how you would like to remember everything about templates. It's targeting in that way. Sometimes you don't want to target it very specifically, because that's like doing 5 times the work, right? So if the About Us page is simply About Us page, the same with the other page that you created, then you don't need to come up with a separate one. That's why here you now get to use the page-specific templates. So similar to the configuration above, you can set up a pattern where page, internal path, and also some node IDs. There's a special page template available in Drupal, which is called front. As you can see, there's a way where you can modify the file using page -- front HTML.twig. So some of the themes that we have been working on didn't actually use every single naming convention. Just for example, let's go with Bootstrap. The template hierarchy of Bootstrap, they define a bunch of them, but they started with Node. That's like the smallest available template here, instead of using HTML or using entry here. They have other templates here for the system, but seeing that there's Node means that this is where they started their base, where they want to put where they start defining entries. So you can see here, there's a definition in Node for specific articles already. That is about articles. And if I'm gonna run this, there's gonna be article tags now in your page. So let's try and check that. I'm gonna go ahead and check our Bootstrap page earlier. I'm gonna open a sample site here. And oops, it's loading. I'm just going to just take a look at the markup. I'm gonna take a look at the first node that we created earlier, node number 1. So this is not being targeted, node number 1. This is just something that we have here. Let's take a look at the markup here very quick. I'm gonna inspect element here. And you can try this out too if you have a different theme that you are working on. What we want to see is that this template here that Drupal use for node.html. That's what he is using for the rest of the files here. You can see the hierarchy. Let's try to trace that here very quickly. So there it is. There's, I think, the first, so there's the section, there's an article. There it is. Let's take a look at the file in here. So article, title, prefix, and the link. And there's also a section footer, so on. So if I'm gonna collapse this, I'm pretty sure you'd be able to map the view here. Okay. Same also with the other files here, like page, HTML. This time I assume this now talks about the header. Oh, there it is. So header. So it now talks about the whole page, a template. And this lets you generate in code sections of your site that's going to be useful. Okay, so why would you want to use Twig? Why would you want to use something like this in Twig? Because there's a lot of naming conventions that you have to follow. Then you can target specific regions, specific blocks. It feels like a lot of work, right? This is really a lot of work. The first answer to that is that if obviously there's an overhead if you have layout stored in configuration instead of code. Twig is rendered by PHP directly, and that means that if a page is rendered, it has a more optimal render speed. So you maybe want to be spending your time investing on Twig if you really want to make the fastest website or the fastest theme. There's much more debate on why would someone want to create Twig templates. But if you are making an application, if you are making a theme that's gonna be used by maybe a lot of users in the site, and it's gonna use a lot of themes, maybe you want to use something that's pre-created like this. And as you remember, if you are using Layout Builder, since it's in the configuration, it's in the database, maybe someone might configure it and maybe break something. It's kind of hard to really go back very quickly with that because it's gonna affect all sites. But in the modern times of site building, maybe you could combine the two. Maybe you could just create the base HTML views, the page views, and everything, which is something that we also done with our Drupal Camp Manila website. We combined the use of Twig templates, defining only the base of bases, which is the node page. We stopped at that. We didn't define the other regions, or we didn't define the other blocks. We didn't define specific node and node types. We relied on that using Layout Builder. However, as I've said already before, you may want to use Twig template because you might not be able to really build something in Layout Builder that quick or that very specific. Sometimes you want to use the power of code to actually come up with a better dynamic view. Now, a piece of advice before using Twig template, and I can't reiterate this more. We do not do any queries. We do not do any special. It's ideal that you don't need to have any customization in terms of views, or sorry, you need to come up with queries in your code. Twig will not allow you to do that. Before there was something like that. That's why as a developer, as a themer, you might want to exhaust your efforts on really using the site building tools that we learned so far, like in the morning, creating custom content types, creating views, max them out, and figure out a way to combine them together. Okay, so that's Twig. This is a really long topic, but what I'm hoping is that for everyone here, understanding Twig as a feature for Drupal and why is it important. You can definitely create sites maybe that you will never need Twig because you just use a base theme or a created theme and just rely on layout builder. That's really a possibility. But it's good to know that if you want to make more control, you can use code for that. Okay, so I'm going to now talk about what I call sub-theming. Okay, you will say, "El, I don't want to create my custom theme. It's a lot of work. I don't want to deal with Twig because, well, we probably just want to do layout builder or we just want to build something very quickly." If you are in that situation, sub-theming lips is definitely for you. So sub-themes is anything like any other theme. The only difference is that they don't just load what you have in that file. You actually load more themes, resources, and someone might say that, can I make a theme or make two, like I think earlier someone asked or Steph asked, can we actually create or use multiple themes? I don't want to say yes to that because technically you're not actually using multiple themes with sub-themes. While we say that we can chain capabilities, you can actually create a Bootstrap sub-theme and then another sub-theme for Bootstrap, right? And in a little while, you'll actually see us doing that. If you actually take a look at Bootstrap in the file, it's actually configured to use some base CSS2 or base style 2, and then Radix, for example. And if you're gonna use a base theme like Radix, that's like loading three themes, right? So a sub-theme can be a child of another sub-theme. It can be branched. It can be organized however you see fit. But just a bit of a warning here that you don't want to make this super complicated, right? Okay, so how do we actually create a sub-theme? So you've already learned how to create a custom theme. You need a folder, you need to rename it. And earlier we created this theme called Fluffiness. It's calling classy, right? However, I want to create a specific sub-theme now. One thing that you can do is maybe you can copy the whole theme. So if I'm gonna do that, for example, to that fluffiness folder here, I'm gonna copy this one. I think I'm gonna paste it here. I'm gonna rename this something like cloudiness. Okay. Now, if you copied it, you need to replace also the files that you've created inside, and that might be taking a toll for you, but that's something that you need to do. And this time you replace it using the file earlier. So you can see that it already pulled in quick addition. I'll rename this now into cloudiness, right? Because that's the name now of my theme. You can probably do some search and replace before you replace the base theme, and that's all you need to do. Now, that's sub-theming, but it's really hard to picture this without a really, really good example. And that's why, to get along with sub-theming, let's now go ahead and go with building a theme with Bootstrap as our sub-theme. Okay? So, I hope you're ready. This is gonna be a bit of a mouthful, but it's gonna be worth it. Okay, so let's now go to sub-theming using Bootstrap. So, to use Bootstrap, the first thing is obviously you need to install Bootstrap. Once you've installed it, you can actually select a specific starter kit already available in the file. Now, where do you find that? So here I have Bootstrap installed. I'm gonna zoom this a bit so that you can see, everyone can see. There's a folder here called Starter Kit, right? You can see that. You can see that it already renamed the file to theme name because this is something that you would rename later on. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that and copy this in my custom folder. Okay. So I now have my theme name, right? So once you have that, as like I've shown you with cloudiness earlier, all you need to do is rename every single instance of theme name. So that's, you need to be careful to not forget that. I'm gonna call this raininess. I'm gonna call this raininess. Very fit for our baking store or bake shop. I'm gonna rename this one by one. That's all you need to do. And that's the good thing with Drupal, that's why the files are separated into these YAML files, right? Because if you have created a bunch of CSS files, you don't have to rename it into raininess. All the templates here follow the naming convention. And the structure is already here. It doesn't have anything though, but you can already start working with this, right? So you have one CSS file here. Usually a base name is just something you add extra CSS file. Now, something is missing. Can someone tell me if there's something missing with my raininess theme? Can someone remind me if what's missing with my theme? Any takers? Anyone who would like to say in chat if I missed something in my file? Okay, thanks everyone. So just checking in. So thank you. So the starter theme doesn't have an info YAML file. That's really because if you notice that theme name folder is actually in the starter kits folder, and how Drupal loads is it finds info YAML files. So if there was an info YAML file here, Drupal now detects a theme name theme. So that's not something that you want. So the starter kit addition in the Bootstrap file deliberately removed a theme file here. So you have here in the instruction, you have to copy the info YAML file to make it easier. Okay, so you have to create your own info YAML file right here. Okay, so to show you that, I'm gonna share this link about if you're not able to, it's a bit long, I think. So everything I've shown you is something that you can see in the official Drupal Bootstrap website under sub-theming, under sub-theming Drupal 8. You can see there the three options that I've shared. There's using the starter kit. I prefer following that only, simply because it's the easiest of the samples here. Okay, so that's all you need to follow to modify here. And here now, if you take a look at the in the project, the way they make it work is that you insert this starter kit file. So here it is. This the info file that we were missing. You just actually rename this. So if it's called starter kit, Drupal doesn't read it. Now I rename it to info.yaml file. It's ready. So rename this to raininess. A description, what is it for? And make sure to you rename also a number of files here. So probably would take time to double check. And that's it. Okay. So very quick step entry here. So that trick question I've shared earlier was said by Bootstrap Drupal. There's a starter kit suffix in the file, and that's just a trick file name so that you could not be able to use. So just rename that, and you can be able to use this sub theme. Okay. So now that I've made it, we need to use it, right? So let's try to use it. I'll go ahead and use Visual Studio Code's tool to run this, but I just need to make sure that I'm not missing any files here. There you go. Okay, so it's done. It's updated. So I'm gonna go ahead and okay. Wait, it's under config install. So I'm just gonna rename this. There you go. This is for raininess and for raininess too. There you go. Okay. I know someone, I know there's a tool to quickly create some boilerplates like this. I'm gonna just show you something like that in a while. So I'm ready. I've renamed all my files. Raininess, Bootstrap, sub theme. So all of that thing that we have learned, understanding the Bootstrap or the theme folder structure, understanding where the files are saved, the Twig template files, all of those things that we reviewed earlier, including the libraries, that YAML, all of that is to come up with a way so that you'll be ready when you're running with base theme, because probably you'll be fine with just CSS files, right? If you just want to do that. But if you want to do something more creative and more complex, you probably want to use this. So let's use this. So I've just pushed a commit for these files on the server. So let's take a look if that's running. So here it just went and run syncing code. Okay, it's running. There you go. The Raininess Bootstrap Sub Theme. Let's try and see if at this point it's gonna work. I'm gonna go here to appearance. If it worked, we should probably see a Raininess theme. So let's see. There you go. I have my raininess. I have my symphonies here, the cloudiness file that I have that we created earlier, and the fluffiness one that I created earlier. They're all here. I've committed them. What I want to use is raininess. I'm gonna use raininess, install, and set as default, and no errors. Let's see if it's gonna work. And it worked. Although it's not really of a grand view, because well, we don't have anything in our CSS file right now, right? So there's really nothing to see with this sub theme. You just ensure that you have enabled a sub theme ready to you, coming up with your styles and everything to make that beautiful website that you're um, yearning for. Okay, so how do I prove that this is running in my raininess theme? I think you would see somewhere here the path. There you go. So themes, custom raininess. I just check it that way to prove that, yep, it's using my custom theme. And you should start seeing now that all of our class names have been replaced, and it's now following the naming convention based on your theme name. I told you about this is important, that it's going to be unique. It is, it's being used, and you're pretty much ready to come up with CSS. Okay, so with that, this is another activity time where I'd like everyone to at least try creating this on your own. You don't have to do the theme folder structure earlier, creating a really new sub theme or new custom theme. If there's something that you will do today, let this be it. That's all I'm asking. If there's something that you could achieve today, this afternoon in Drupal Camp, is to see your site use a sub-theme. It could be Bootstrap, it could be anything else. You could use Foundation or other sub-theme that you like. You can even use the Zerb or the Symfony theme that you like. You can do that. For the sake of cleanliness, I just had to use Bootstrap for the sample. But for the next few minutes, maybe you would need like 5 or 10 minutes here, probably, or more. Please, if someone is doing like a nice different set, I hope someone can volunteer to share the screen and share it to the team of what they did. And also, if just using Bootstrap, just say it worked. If you were able to use Bootstrap and create a Bootstrap subtheme. So please do take the time, try to come up with a subtheme. I wish you luck. I hope you're able to follow through here. I'm gonna leave this screen up here so you can take a look. But you already have the link as well too there. So if you want to just copy that. If you have questions, you may post them now in chat now. I'll be usually I'll be roaming around the room and taking a look at everyone's work. I wish I could do that now, but probably PMs or questions will do for now. Okay, so um, everyone begin. Thank you. Okay, I'm back. That I think was a little bit over 5 minutes. I have a question here from Duty. Can I get a PowerPoint share here? I think what you mean is the link to the PowerPoint or this presentation slides. Okay, I will upload this to the web page so we can view that. But for the link, let's see if I can just share this now. Just share this quickly. Okay, I think this should work. See, so that's the slides that we are using. We're kind of changing um, the order of it as we were going along. There you go. I change it. This is the file that you're running into. Okay, so I hope you were able to see that. Okay, I think you're able to see that. I see now different animals showing up. Not that you guys are, these are cute icon of animals. That's what I meant. Okay, so is did did anyone complete the sub theme activity? Anyone here? Um, or still working on? Still have a few minutes, so no rush. And while you guys are at it, I just went on and inactivated Symphony's theme here. So remember that tool where they had a um an available flex slider here, the view page looks nice. There's some background images at here that I don't know if you could probably configure or something. Okay, but this doesn't look bake shop. This doesn't look bake shop yet. Okay, I'm just playing around with it. Um, Somebody could have created a base theme from this one. It's also possible. There's no limitation on which one you could use. So here, that's all the settings that they have here. Okay. Okay, just 2 more minutes for the theme, and then the last part is um, quite a bit lengthy, but probably just in time for us to finish off our afternoon session. And we will have time for additional features.
Okay, just a few more minutes, and then I hope someone could say I did it. I was able to do a sub theme. If none, it's fine. Okay, so while you guys are still and hopefully completing the task, I'm just gonna do a bit of preparation of on what I'm gonna try next. Uh, okay, okay. So while just waiting, I'm just gonna make a quick um, um, demo of what I've been using for me working on Pantheon and coming up with local development. Maybe you want to work locally to be able to run these things. And while uploading and downloading the files that you commit directly to the site is quite fine. That could work. Sometimes you may want to run a number of things so that you can do a local development environment. And so with this tool I'm showing, it's called Pantheon Local Dev. Um, this is actually one of the tools that we use uh, for being able to just quickly download a file or a site that you're working on and be able to just quickly start working on it. It's really nice. And if you have some sites in Pantheon, you just go ahead and run this command here where you can pull for local development. And you should be able to like just run it and have a server online on your local machine. That would really, really be helpful. One trimmed down version of the um, local development feature is what I call Lando. And as I've shared the other day, would be able to run something with this using just your local machine in Docker. So I'm working on the project um, DC Manila 2020 demo here. And there you go. So I could simply run the site that I'm running on by simply running lando init. Okay. And what this will do is in that code folder that I'm working on, I can say I'm gonna run something here. I'm gonna run Drupal 8. I'm gonna say this is my application Manila 2020 demo. And what it will do is create a Docker configuration so that I could start running my app here. And all of this, I'm doing this because I want to have a local development environment. You can have Apache server on, or you can use any other tool that you may be already comfortable. I'm just showing Lando because I find it nice that I don't have to always have an installation of everything forever. With Lando, I could just run a local server on demand and be able to destroy it on demand. As you can see, it's just taking a bit of time to generate the app servers because this is like me installing it. And with just a few commands, I was able to run it. And the good thing too about it is that that configuration that I just made, it's portable and something that could be reused by my team.
And then we will have a same local development environment. We don't have some differences in terms of local development, which avoids some issues on project problems or differences on how you work on things. Okay, so let's now go back to the next sub-theming tool. But before that, I see a question. Is using Twig in a front-end framework like React a good idea? Or should we just pick one? Huh, that's a really good question because later on, I'm going to show something. I think we will still have time that React as a tool is actually being used instead to do something like what we call headless CMS. So that means you don't have to really worry about Twig. Yeah. All you need to do is that rely on Drupal on the content. What are the fields? What are the images that you need to show up? And if you do something like a React app native or even like a static generator, I know some folks are starting to use a lot Gatsby. We have a session, I think, tomorrow about Gatsby. We use Drupal just simply a content repository. The fields, the content, that's it. And the presentation layer is React. So using both Twig and React is, well, there's probably a scenario where you won't be using Twig at all. You just use React. But is there a way where you would actually build Twig as well and then come up with React components? Um, I don't know if that theme is still available, but there are some Drupal themes out there that actually integrated not just React. There's even Angular. There's even Vue. So let's try to just take a look here. I know we've been talking about Bootstrap all day, but is someone already creating a theme that's made with React? So the answer, according to Google, seems like yes. Probably there's also an Angular Drupal 8 theme, I believe. So is this still gonna use Twig? Definitely, because Drupal 8 is using Twig as a default rendering engine, but you use Twig so that you could insert React, I guess, components. I don't really know how much depth, how that worked because I've never built or I never had the need to do it that way. Mostly it's gonna be building a front end and using Drupal, just using its API that's built in. Later on, we'll show you that. But yeah, sometimes it's better if you create a theme so that you just have to worry about one thing. There's no special extra server. It's just Drupal. You just need to learn about Drupal theming with just an additional context of front-end development frameworks like Angular, React, or Vue, and all that. Okay. So, short answer, probably a good idea depending on the project, but most likely you are gonna pick one depending on the project. It's either you just full Drupal or maybe full front-end headless CMS thing. So that's the word. Okay, so this doesn't look like a good theme React.js. Okay, so let's go answer more questions. Oh no, I thought there was another question. So thanks too, guys. So let's now work with another theme that I really like. It's called Radix. As I've shared to you guys earlier, Radix is popular with a number of um, distributions in Drupal. And I'm gonna show you the installation guide, although I have it here also in the presentation. So to actually install Radix, you have to follow the same idea I shared earlier. You run Composure require Drupal components in Radix. Okay, so I'm going to do that with our project. I'm gonna go to um, to my, sorry, to my file here, Visual Studio Code. And instead of running, I'm gonna go to terminal in Visual Studio Code. So if some of you are already familiar, you can actually use the built-in terminal inside Visual Studio Code. So Composure require Drupal components. I know this is a bit small, but let me try to zoom it a bit. And then Drupal Radix. That's all I want to write. I'm gonna press install, and that's gonna download, and that's all. That's all you need to get Radix running. I'd be asking why there's a components module there. I'm just using Radix. So according to Radix, they use the components module for a number of things on the version of 8.4x. Okay, and it's called 4.x because this version now runs on Bootstrap 4. So if you all want to do an upgrade coming from Bootstrap 3, and if you're using Bootstrap 4, you will now harness the power of flex-based layouts. Super nice. You'd probably want to use Bootstrap 4. So Bootstrap 4, flex, you'll never go wrong with that. Although you just need to probably study again what you know about Bootstrap. Okay, so I'm running the installation here. It's gonna be, or it's gonna probably take time, but while waiting, I'm gonna lead to you with this extra steps here. Step number 2 says you can create a subtheme by simply running a command. But the command here is called drush-include radix create and the subtheme name. So earlier in Bootstrap, we manually copy the files, right? So that's gonna work for you. But what if it's a really big subtheme and you have a lot of file names you need to replace? So if that's the case, we would have wished there's a nice tool to do that, okay? And in Radix, they require this tool called Drush. That's another tool, right? So Drush, I'm gonna use here the Wikipedia definition, Drupal Shell, that's how it's called. It's a shell, or it's a command line tool to run a number of very nice commands to run and control your Drupal site remotely using just the command line. You don't have to click anything. There's probably hundreds of commands available, and people are using Drush as a base for building automation tools like this one. Create a subtheme. It copies files, it renames files, and even downloads a few number of things. It's really nice. I recommend you installing Drush. And to install Drush, there's a way where you can install it specific to your site. But my recommended approach is to download it for your computer. So how to do that? So let's go to drushcommands.com, and or is it .org or .com? So you go to Drush commands, or you just simply search install Drush. Aside, is there a down? Oh no, there's not a download link here. But I'm gonna go Drush install. Gonna type that in Google. I think it's drush.org. There you go. So go to drush.org. Sorry about that. Drush command is like so I'm gonna share it already since you've seen it. That's my I'm always taking a look at this page to remember all the commands that I need to run, syntax. So here you follow the installation process here, and I suggest following the global install. So here, this one, it tells site local. I recommend following the Drush launcher or the global installation launcher instead. Okay. So not this one, the Composure base, you'd better use the Drush launcher here. Okay, so that's number 2. Here you go, Drush Ops, Drush launcher. Okay, so that's what I recommend. Although it may vary, I guess, the experience. So you can follow the official docs to just use a site-specific Drush installation. But I become more comfortable on running a global install for Drush Runner. Okay, so while waiting, I have created here a site. This is a brand new site that I'm gonna create, or I just created. This is entirely blank, right? Because it doesn't have it doesn't have the copy of I had from the online site. I'm gonna try and create a new site to demo Radix. Now the installation completed. See here, Radix. It worked. So from here, I want to try to follow now Radix command Drush. If you have installed Drush already, you can copy this command here up until here. And this time I'm gonna call a domain or a theme name called Storminess. There you go. I'm gonna call Storminess. Okay. Now, I think this is gonna fail. Or I think I'm gonna run it here. Storminess. Okay. Yeah. So okay, sorry. I think it looks like it requires me to install Composure as well, or Drush from my site. It's okay. Can run and install that again. So I'm gonna call Composure require Drush. I may have removed Drush on my computer earlier, but yeah. But Composure require Drush, it lets you run. So if you are able to install Drush, unlike me, this will copy the file. However, one caveat while I'm saying that it's not gonna work is because you actually need a working Drupal environment to run Drush. Okay, so that's the caveat for running Drush. You cannot run Drush if you are just on a local code base, because Drush is meant to run on an actual Drupal site where site is installed, a site is working, and you'd be able to run it here. So in my case, I tried to view the list here, and you should be able to run it successfully. Now, for the interest of time, I was kind of scared that this might happen. I prepared a project where we already have Radix installed, and there's already a Radix project available. So I have here your C. So I'm gonna open a new window and open this one instead. So this is a project that I've been working on personally. The code name is really cryptic, URCAR29D8. Okay, so what happens is if you create a Radix file, there you go. I'm gonna skip to number 4 because this requires you to activate the theme already. So this is something that you would use into a local development environment where you can set it already. The reason why you want to activate it in a local environment is that if you actually edit your theme, there's some tools installed in Radix that lets you see live each change in your website. So earlier, I've been changing things and I've been refreshing my page. But with the use of browser sync, so there's browser sync in Radix, you just have to run a Radix and follow the commands here so that you could run it successfully. What happens is as you keep on modifying, as you keep on developing in your site, browser sync lets you be able to run on the site and be able to, as you edit, be able to run this successfully. So let's try to go there. So I'm gonna go to cd themes. Oops. Oh, what's happening? There you go. Oops. So there's custom, there's cd urc 2019. So I created a subtheme called urc 2019. So what I'll do is I'll run the command npm install, and to understand why we need to do that is that here there's actually a set of npm related packages, so packages of JSON. It's very similar to our Composure in Drupal. It's about npm or node stuff. So some tools related to front-end development. So I'm gonna run npm install, although I already installed it in my machine. And what it does is it generates all these files that you need to come up with your project, being able to run browser stack, ES6, and all the other tools that you need to work on. So this is very relevant to someone who asks if you're gonna use React combined with Twig. Probably if you're gonna do something like that, you'll do something like this, because dependencies in React or modules in Vue or Angular are probably installed using npm. So it's gonna be a requirement so that you get to install npm only to install stuff. It's not really you making a Node.js application. It's still Drupal at this point. It's still Drupal. It's just that we are actually using npm specific tools that lets us do our theming. So it's something, a bit of an advanced workflow, I'll be honest. And I'm just showing you that this is something you can do very quickly with this theme called Radix. It's super nice, and it follows the same concept of creating a sub-theme where the Radix-based theme is used. And this URC theme here, if you check the info.yaml file, is running here. So the Radix entry. Okay. So very, very similar. The only difference that we are doing is that there's some extra additional work about using tools. Now, the question is, why do you actually want these tools, right? Why would you actually want to run npm on your file? So the answer to that is the way this project runs is actually using Sass components. As you can see here, I have here CSS and JS files, but you don't actually touch these files. I'm gonna show you one file here, and these are not actually generated by hand. Okay. This is actually something that was created using Sass here. And if you're going into front-end development, this is actually a tool. It's also CSS, but it actually lets you customize your project to a more organized manner in terms of whatever components, sections that you want to build, that lets you organize your CSS properly. So for example, remember, we have a lot of templates in Twig, right? And it would really suck if all your CSS files stay in one style.css file, right? That's gonna be a nightmare to maintain. What you can do is use SCSS so that you could probably combine some of the reusable CSS elements here. So here, this is a pre-made template that you could just follow. And this way, you could probably create a CSS file that could be specific to your templates, your forms, etc. Easier for you to manage. And while this is called SCSS, right? When you actually use the tools that you just installed, and right now it just finished, okay? When I run npm watch or run watch, this now creates this monitoring tool where it reads all your SCSS files, compiles it, and generates it to a proper CSS file. So where do we save that? Here in the assets folder. And have here. So this is being generated, combining all those SCSS files. Okay. So as you can see here, the file here, can you see how long that CSS file is? It's 9,584 lines. Damn, right? So it's a nightmare to actually maintain a CSS file. Probably, I remember I was working on a very, very simple site. I didn't notice that my CSS file got around 1,000 lines. I just went on from top to bottom, just keep on running CSS, and I didn't realize it's 1,000 lines already. So this is really hard to maintain. That's why we recommend this nifty tool, Sass. Sass is a skill for running projects or doing CSS files. And oops, as you can see, it's watching files now. And if I do some changes, let me try to do some changes now with maybe one file. Maybe I'll do this element.css text. Maybe I'll do color. I'll just type color black. That's gonna be it. So if I save it, as you can see, that npm run watch that I ran earlier, it's now saving my file. And in this project, I have actually an SFTP server connection set up so that even as I compile, I sync back my project to my Pantheon dev server. So really nice, and it's really, really helpful. There are a number of projects now in the Drupal themes environment and set that you could actually use npm build tools. And it's really nice for themers so that your project is more manageable. Actually, in this sample, we didn't even have a minification step. Usually, we see projects that aside from having a compiled CSS file, that CSS file is converted into a minified CSS file. So some of the folks may be trying to do this via the server. I'd rather let you do it via your code. That's much better. There are tools here that could let you do that. In this case, the tool being used here is Webpack and Laravel Mix. So to read more about this is Radix. You try to install it in your local machine. There's a bit of some extra things to install because, well, you have Composure, then you have to install it on a working Drupal site. and then you have to install npm, and then run webpack, run watch, and so on. Okay. That's not really bad, to be honest. Just remembering, all you need to remember, if you just probably need to do this once on your project, and then just do npm rush all the time, probably. That's not really bad. Okay, so there you go. I was able to show you a theme called Radix. Okay, and there's a number of projects out there who's using Radix, so it's really a good thing to invest time on learning about it. You have also seen that there's a nice tooling set available baked into the theme to do some um, management of your CSS projects. If you're on a big team, this is really, really helpful. And all you need to do is invest time on learning these things. Actually, all you need to do is install these things rather, okay? So if I'm gonna look for things like themes with Sass, or things like doing SCSS, you've seen one project earlier. If you remember Zerb Foundation, okay? There's one thing that I discovered just recently. I'm calling it Bootstrap Storybook, okay? This is quite new because so Storybook is a another framework for UI building. It's like marrying two different UI framework tooling. So here, this is called Bootstrap Storybook. It uses Storybook.js. It has Bootstrap. It has browser sync, Laravel mix as well, Webpack. And the folks here actually say that they heavily relied to Radix. Okay, so the theme structure is basically coming from Radix. That's what they say. But same tool, same process. You can see the installation is exactly the same. The only difference I think is when you install components, they had to do it on a later step, but so the same, right? What I like about this is um, the latest Storybook JS framework. This might be a big like maybe adding complexity, but if you want to try something new, it has really nice UI components that you would use. It has things that's made for a bunch of other tools like React, React Native. And if you want to get started with it, and if you're using Drupal and be able to figure them out one by one, then you can use them on other projects too. Maybe use Vue, React, Angular, or whatever. So really nice. Try it out. And at this point, this leads me to running or letting you see I'm working. Let me see if I have the working site in here. So I know it's gonna take time. So the same way we did earlier, we save your files, you upload to your servers, and the site would look like this blank um, file here as well. So here I have this is also doing Bootstrap. It's running on Flex, and that means you'd be able to do Flex specific manipulations on your elements, which is really great and really powerful. Something really worth to work on, something really worth it. Okay. So for activity time, for the next maybe 10, 15 minutes, if you haven't installed 10 p.m., it's fine. But please try to follow the steps here. I hope someone can say I was able to do it. in the next few minutes. And after this, you can also have a quick break here. Now after doing this exercise or activity, we are going to have an open forum session or Q&A for the rest of the hour until no one wants to ask anything. Um, I'm gonna give you 15 minutes, I guess, to figure this out and also take a break and maybe figure out some questions. I hope that you're able to follow with Radix. I hope someone can say that they're able to follow it. And then probably I'll ask some questions as well for you guys to just see if you were able to remember stuff. I don't know. Let's see. Okay, so try it out. This is called Radix. Um, really nice tool. I hope you're able to use it on your projects. Okay, see you in a couple of minutes. Just gonna take a break and take a drink on my side and catch you again in a few minutes. Thanks, guys.
Okay, just checking in. Any folks out there who's gonna share some question or tools on their side? Okay, I'm just trying to clean up my local machine here. Session. Okay. I guess if there's no question, and if you guys are still running it, maybe for the interest of time, let's just go ahead and run something here. There was a question earlier. Just want to answer this for everyone. So someone asked if we can use React on Drupal. Okay. So the answer to that is yes. And actually, I'm showing you here one of the things we've been presenting to some folks that since Drupal 8, RESTful is an available core module in Drupal. And it is super helpful if you want to create your site, be able to connect with, let's say, devices, maybe connect with mobile, or just use your data as a source using REST. But in 8.6, JSON API, a fully compliant implementation of JSON, has been run into Drupal 8. And this is a really, really good addition because this means that if you are going to develop modern multi-device applications, front-end framework, or headless CMS, Drupal has probably given you the complete package for running a site. Okay, so that is really, really helpful. And there's also a way where you can really just configure Drupal to define, let's say, API endpoints or JSON API routes, as we call them. What's different here is that you don't have to do extra additional code to implement APIs in Drupal. Since you've already implemented a content in Drupal, that is already available to your REST API. I'm going to show you that now because this is for folks who are not really doing theming, but probably doing front-end applications, and they want to have something that's useful to create content repositories that can be used both as a website and also something maybe for an app or maybe for other devices. Okay, so to work on with that, you go to extend and be able to go to the web services section. So it's a little bit down here. So you'd like to enable, I'd like to enable RESTful and JSON API. I will not install the others. I'm sure this is required by RESTful, so I'm gonna enable it now already. I'm gonna click install now. And I will just show in a couple of maybe minutes how to actually use both of them. Okay. So here I've activated it now. There you go. So yep, it's working. Now, everything that I'm gonna share is available online as documentation. I'm gonna find the link and share it to you guys. I'm gonna go start running with RESTful web service first. So I'm gonna go. What if I want to use my view that we created earlier, a table of pricing that I can use for, let's say, a REST API. Okay, so
Just wondering if that's possible. So let's try that. I'm gonna go to views here. Okay. If you remember views, we created a page, we created a block. So in this case, you can think that are we gonna create probably another page that is gonna send REST data, right? That's probably the question. So let's try that out. I'm gonna go to views, and this is you gonna be making or reusing our products page earlier. I'm gonna run it here. I'm gonna edit this now. And I'm gonna try to stop Docker for a while. Okay, so here I have products page here. Now, when I activate RESTful, there's a new display mode now called REST export. Okay. And here, I don't have to redo anything. I just need to add a display, as REST export is considered as a display format. I'm gonna define a path to access this. I'm gonna name it maybe API/products page, or maybe API/products. That's all I want. Okay. And at the bottom here, you'll see a nice preview of how it looked like. I'm gonna save this. And what we'll do is we'll access that endpoint and see for ourselves how we're able to create content. API, products, and hopefully my Chrome add-on still works. This, okay. Oh, I think I forgot to configure format. Was Json, I think I forgot to set this. There you go. So I forgot to add format JSON there, but I think I could fix that too to only allow JSON. Let me try if I can fix that very quickly. It went an error because it said it didn't know what to display. You can actually display not just JSON, you can actually display XML. Let's see if I can able to just quickly set that. There you go. I didn't add a setting there, so I'm gonna save that. And I think that should fix the error that I'm encountering earlier. So I'm gonna try and remove it. Hopefully this will work now. There you go. So no need for a parameter, that endpoint. So you can see here, Drupal allows you to see a list of your content. That's the title, like brownies. Then there was thing. Now this is really powerful for someone who wants to build, let's say, a front-end application, something about your maybe a device that reads advertisements in your page. This is a big shop, so if you want to show maybe promotions coming from your website into maybe a screen in your shop, maybe you could use this so that you don't have to re-upload your content in multiple places. You just come up with a public REST API to pull your info, right? So I want to make this more, for me, I don't like the look of this because it's a lot of fields. I want to customize it so it's gonna look super readable. No additional fluff, right? I'm gonna change this. I want to just show fields. So I can, just like what we did with changing tables, changing display, the serializer format is something we could do. So I'm gonna choose fields here so that I could rename everything. So the product image, I'll just call this product image. Title would be title, and then product price. And I can reorder the fields however I want. You can add more fields that you like. And as you can see here, it's now a very slim version of the page compared to that very long fluff. And now I'm gonna go here to my API products view. And that should be a slimmer, more specific set of fields allowed in your REST API endpoint. And it's super nice that it immediately adds these nice markup. It's really nice if you're gonna use this like in a device or something. But you can also configure it to show just the raw values of that field. You just go to settings, and I think if you add raw output here, that should do the trick. Yep. Or not. It pulled a different set of things. I think what I'll do is change this into a raw. There you go. I'm gonna change this to a plain text. So no link to content. I'm gonna remove link to the content. Also this product image, I'm gonna remove the link, I guess here, or maybe just the URL. I don't know. I'll figure this out later. But this is just use show there you go. It's already the link, so that's good. I'm gonna refresh this, and I've transformed my REST API endpoint into something that I really want and need. Okay, so there you go. Just a title, no fluff. The image source link. I think we can still transform this into like this path only. We can probably figure out a way to change that instead of the image link. But if I'm gonna do a front-end application, probably I can just parse this and just get this section here. Probably easier than, or whichever you prefer for those who are gonna build something like this. Okay. So super nice, and it's something that I really enjoy working with Drupal. Ever since Drupal 8, this has been part of core, and a number of projects have been built across the years to do this very specific project or view. You can customize this more. You can do some permissions. You can do some authentication and so on. The last thing I guess that's to highlight here is what about that Json endpoint? Okay, so it's a little bit different if you run Json API. So Json API doesn't really go with views, but rather it goes into a very specific path. So here, if you have node 1, you actually view this as JSON API node article /1. Okay. So if you view it, this is how it looks like. So every node, every item in Drupal is immediately converted to a JSON API specification field set. Why would someone want this? Because, well, this is a standard. So people would probably want to use this. And yeah, so you'd be able to run this. Although I think I'm not getting the correct field here. I should be getting maybe. What I'm gonna remove this. I'm gonna call this article just to see the number of pages. So if you go to node article, it shows you all the articles here. There you go. That's the list now. So no need to create a view, just like what I did earlier. And then here, you can use the ID. I think this is what I need to use for viewing a specific page or article. There you go. So I'm now pulling this very specific article instead of pulling the whole article list. So super nice. If I actually use products here, it will show all the products that we've created so far. And if I wanted to like filter it, there's a number of syntax that's JSON API compliant. I think this is the, I'm gonna limit it to just one because anyway, we just have two. So this to like do a very quick pagination to your list. And now I'm just seeing one entry. I'm not seeing the other one. I'm gonna change to maybe 5. And oops. I'm gonna change it to 5, and then it now shows up all that product pages I had created earlier. So just to wrap this up, I just showed you that in Drupal on its core, there is a tool called RESTful Web Services and JSON API. These are modules that are part of core that whatever website you built in, you can activate it, and immediately you have a website and an REST API or JSON API resource project. You can do a lot of things with that. You can create maybe IoT stuff. Maybe you patch a phone or mobile application, pulling content here, even make a mobile application out of it. And for very complex content, in the future, you'll probably come up with a very, very big site. There's modules too that help us with documentation. There's a module called Json Api Explorer. And what it does, it just gives you that nice view of what are the fields available instead of like viewing each one of them and figuring out what are they for. So this is using tools like Redux, Swagger, or all those open API set of modules that for someone who's really into doing projects like this, it's really gonna work. I know that the next question here is, can we do GraphQL in Drupal? So because yeah, probably that's what the other folks are using. Is there a module for that? The answer is yes. There's a module for that, but it's not part of core. But it's like if you're gonna do React, if you're gonna do Vue that uses the GraphQL setup, then you can use it as well. Just add this here, and similar to REST and JSON API I showed you earlier, it's gonna work the same way. So super nice, and a bunch of additional things that I'd like to share with you. That there's even a module that after you've created everything, your site, there's a tool that lets you save it as a complete in HTML static file. I know that in this time of year, all the people are saying, do a static site, blah, 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 it's gonna be faster. So here, that demo umami site, I installed Tome over it and exported the whole site as is. So no change there. It just like rendered the HTML pages and copied it into an HTML file. It runs super fast. If you want to run like a Drupal blog in your local machine and you want to export this maybe in a static, like in Netlify or GitHub, you can do that. You can sync it, build it, and you don't need a server, just have it in your local machine. And another tool that's going to be taking popularity, we'll have a presentation about this, I guess, tomorrow, is Gatsby. So Gatsby is officially supporting Drupal, and a number of our friends in the Drupal community is building Gatsby sites nowadays, static site generator. To create Gatsby, you just download that repo that I showed you, and 4 lines of command, and you'll be able to use the same Umami demo that I'm showing you right now. As long as you activate REST and JSON API, and you now have a working, complete Gatsby site using Drupal. So this is just to show you that you can actually work with Drupal on a lot of number of front-end tools. So React, so Gatsby, and all those other nice things about front-end development. Okay, so so next step. So she said amazing. I say amazing always too. Whenever I kind of demo this, I can't stop getting amazed myself that it's something I could do with Drupal, and it's really nice. Building an application, I think, is super easy at this point, and you just need to really remember all these content building or content management things. Everything is covered. If it's in core, it means it covers everything, including permissions, users, all of that. There's some API to be able to create users or register users. It's really amazing, and I really enjoy seeing this every time and seeing it grow as well. So with that, that's a segue now for us running in our Q&A session. So I'd like to maybe open the floor now. You can guys speak if you like to speak out or ask the question directly and let everybody hear your beautiful voice. If you have any comments or concerns or just any feedback about what you've seen so far. So anyone would like to share or any questions that you'd like to ask? And I'm gonna show my face so you know that I'm really talking to you guys. Or are you guys seeing me? Okay. Okay, any questions? No questions? Wow, okay. It's either I really did a good job or we are, okay, good, nice. I now see questions. So question here, how can we theme a form in Drupal? So first, it depends on what form are you trying to theme. So the question is, what can you theme a form in Drupal? So the answer is yes. Actually, in the Bootstrap theme, there's an example where you need to figure out a specific set of form templates. So the answer to that is, if you are building a form, you just need to find that form ID and form name that you want, and you'd be able to run into configuring how it looks like, how it moves. If it's just CSS, you don't probably need a Twig. Probably can use the just special modules to that. But to the question about how you theme a form, if it's a form like for a contact form, maybe you just need to pull up your theme and use the same node twig template naming convention to target that and be able to transform it. If it's about internal forms, you rely on your admin theme. You can create specific forms inside. You probably want to create a specific admin theme. So the key point there is be able to get Twig to work on that. So yeah, so thanks Ines for the question. So that's how can we theme a form in Drupal. Yeah, there's really a lot of ways to answer that question, but in relation to our topic today, use target that using Twig. Okay, so as beginners, is there a best practice that we can start with? Okay, wow, it's like a beauty pageant question, huh? So in terms of best practice, I would always ask everyone to follow user guide that I've shared in the docs, because that's always the agreed convention when running it. So for example, if you want to run a new project, you need to always use Composure. You don't have to go away with Composure, and you need to really work with that. For coming up with applications like site building, where you can start, it's really hard to determine how to start if there's no like specific project in case. So for example, if you are doing websites, like you are trying to build like a bake shop website, if it's just a corporate company website, I suggest really starting to understand layout building. And you would also want to do something like um, advanced sub-theming. So doing sub-theming and doing layouts in the in layout builder probably, or um, just mastering content types. That's the first thing I would suggest. That's the best first, not really best practice, but the best first. So master custom content, and then master sub theming. Okay. So thanks for that question, Steph. My next question here is from Mark. Is the theme required if you use a front-end framework, or there will be always be a base theme? Good question. Okay. So the answer there is yes, because a Drupal site requires a running themes for you to be able to access it. But you can always hide that and never use it, because this Drupal just runs that way. You can always just activate the required modules for making it as a front end data repository. It's also a good practice to have a theme enabled so you can able to access the actual content. Because I think the way someone would make this happen is someone will make an app to both configure, administer, and also maybe another app to like for content creator, like bloggers. That's all in fine, but because it's still Drupal, if you want to have a way to still access it, if something goes wrong with the apps, just in case, you want to have a theme. So if you need what base theme you need to enable, just use 7. I mean, that's the basis of base themes, I guess. So just have base theme 7. That's the answer there. Okay, thanks, Mark, for the question. I have here now, is a paid theme better than Drupal community theme? Okay, it's really hard to answer this without actually comparing to actual themes, because if we just say in general paid themes are better than Drupal community themes, we will not have a fair answer. So for example, if you saw Radix, that kind of theme, that's a really valuable theme. Someone who figured out making that tool to create something very quickly and also integrate Webpack and Laravel mix. That sounds, it's already it's worth a lot, right? But sometimes paid themes out there who offers you a complete solution, who already looks like the site that you're imagining. It's probably something you buy from like Envato or Team Forest or something like that, or super themes. It would probably cost you just a few, like $60 or $100. The time, probably you just get that because well, it's already fit for your needs. So I really can't say that it's always one is better because someone is paid versus community. Someone would say that community is always better because it's from the community, blah, blah, blah. But I can't really agree to that because it really depends on your project. So there's no better. It's just that it's gonna be better depending on your use case. So if there's a theme out there that's already looking like corporate for you, that's good enough, then use it. Don't have to build another one. Just maybe sub theme it, maybe, and that's it. That's all that you need. So no problem buying themes as long as they're not causing problems with your site or any or they're not supported. Okay, so very good question. I really like that paid theme because it's unusual that we're talking about paid themes in Drupal, to be honest. Megamerks. Since this is only a demo, how about if you use this in production environment? Would be some common pitfalls. I may need to clarify this question. This is only a demo. You mean demo umami or the all the tools that I've shown you? So if it's all the tools like JSON API, REST API, and all the other uh, tools here, these are really meant for production use. Drupal core is meant for production use. So the only thing there that I was mentioning not meant for production use was the use of demo umami as your base theme, or also the quick start. But everything I've shown you, I did not install any other extra modules that are super huge, I guess. These are meant for production. And to also answer that, how can we say if a module that I look at in Drupal.org, is that something that is production ready? So we can actually answer that. So you may have noticed that if you go to a module or theme page, in the download section, if that number, it says here, I'm gonna go here, you can see here, recommended, it's color green. This is production ready. And customers will also, or developers will also say what is not developer or production ready. A number of folks will definitely tell you that, hey, use this module at your own risk, and so on and so forth, right? So everything I've shown you is production ready, but if you want to look for or want to find what will be not production ready, Drupal is kind enough to vet these tools by the community and say, oh, they're not ready. Okay. So thanks for that. Common pitfalls is really, yeah, not looking at Drupal.org, I guess. That's the pitfall if you're not looking at, oh, not updating, I guess. That's the common pitfall. Um, but someone would say, but updating it is actually making my site. Yeah, but you don't deploy to production. That's what I will say to those guys. Okay, so thanks. I think I'm gonna call you Megamerks. So APA. What do you prefer, to create custom block library or to create custom block via module? Very good question. So if you want a configuration of a block that is in the code, obviously you want to custom code via module. If it's the same, it's a very easy thing, and you want to just put it there and be able to import and export it. There's a tool called configuration management in Drupal, and I may have not shown it today, but there is a tool in Drupal. It's also using Drush that you can export configuration. So right now, as you can see, I'm running in dev, and all these things that I configured, that's only gonna happen here in the dev environment. But there's actually a tool that you can use where you can deploy your configuration using the custom block library or the custom content type. No, it's something available in for configuration management. However, I just know that the custom block library being fairly new, there's some slight issues on the implementation and also understanding with the community. So maybe if you encounter that, you just maybe come up with a module. Anyway, it's not that hard. Or look for block modules that helps you like stage your content from one dev or from dev to test or to live, all those things. So what do I prefer? Personally, I just prefer creating custom blocks directly, because when I implement custom blocks, I just say to customers or clients that this is something like just creating an article, and they're happy with that. We can create additional fields just for fun, and they can reuse and recreate a number of custom blocks. So I prefer that. But sometimes that's not good if your user base is not really that good on like doing admin stuff. So you maybe want to create a module. Good question. Really, really nice. Okay, so Anna, why should we choose Drupal over other CMS tool? Can I rephrase this? Like, should I use Drupal versus WordPress? Because I've been using WordPress for so long too. So why should we choose Drupal over other CMS tool? I really think that it's also with a specific project. If you've seen here, in Drupal, I was able to show you how to customize content very nicely. But if I didn't need that, if I didn't need to make custom content, I just need a really, really good homepage. If I'm going to use Drupal, if you notice, it's going to be taking a bit longer because you'd probably choose a theme, then you're going to sub theme, and then you're going to do something manually by code. That by itself is probably not that helpful. And for other CMS, like for example, WordPress, where they have a lot of like page builder tools. So even WordPress itself converted itself into a page builder. So they have Gutenberg. They have in WordPress, I use a lot Elementor and all those stuff. But sometimes when I now come to a layout and I want to create custom loops, custom sections, something that I get locked, and then I want to code my way to create a custom widget or custom section in like other, like specifically for WordPress, I always remember Drupal, that if I would be in Drupal, I don't have to code. I don't have to create a new plugin for that and so on and so forth. So it really depends on your site. And if you are gonna create a really huge site that has a lot of content, it's gonna be Drupal for me, because the counterpart from other, like specifically for WordPress, if that's the question, or like for Joomla, um, some folks rely on using plugins to convert that, or extensions in Joomla in this case. But yeah, it's really a matter of preference in terms of your discipline and how you create your project. If you need just a single page, I can probably vet, say Drupal's better, but sometimes it's better because you can really customize every single thing. Maybe if you have the time to do that, it's really good. And to top off with that other CMS tool, we're not really thinking about who's better, who's or not. We're now thinking about what are the best practices out there. And just to share to you guys, there's actually a remnant of WordPress into Drupal. So if anyone here is using WordPress just like me, there's actually a module now that is called Gutenberg. This is gonna be a bit funny, but so I know how Gutenberg works extensively in WordPress. But what I really appreciate about the team that created Gutenberg for Drupal is that nice page building experience that created by Gutenberg. So there's custom blocks and all that thing. It uses also the same custom block logic in Drupal. So remember views, remember sections and all that. It's actually available here as well. And actually, I have a demo. I think I have a demo of Drupal running on Gutenberg. I think this one is running Gutenberg. So Drupal uses Gutenberg here. I think I'm gonna show you very quickly, but if it's not here, maybe I forgot to move it here. So it's not really about choosing over. I'm really more about choosing what works best. So here, as you can see, I have a project and a sample where I actually used Gutenberg for a sample, and it works really well. I can use custom blocks from WordPress. I can use the Drupal blocks that I make. So if you want to create custom tables using views, that's really good. The custom blocks, they're fun and all, but sometimes they are not complete for my use. So here I have the reusable blocks that I created and the views that I have. Really nice. It's almost like a counterpart for Layout Builder. Okay, so I hope I was able to give light in that question. A really controversial topic, if you ask me, but yeah, you just asked me why would I be still using Drupal despite me knowing WordPress, because I know that Drupal is the perfect fit for a specific project. And also WordPress is specific fit for something else. Okay, thanks for that question. Was hoping for something like that too. Okay, Martin, do we expect any significant changes to theming in Drupal 9? Okay, so the answer is no. There's no significant change, simply because we are still using Twig. We will not be changing Symfony. It's still Symfony. So the only significant change probably there is because we were using Twig, older Twig versus newer Twig. So there's Twig version 1, and we were until like 8.6 that it's still like Twig 1.456 or something. We just released a version where we're now running in Twig 2.0. And maybe in the future, we'll have to force ourselves to use Twig 3.0. So that's something that I'm kind of expecting that that's not gonna be a changer. However, I wanna point out the Claro theme. If you have the Claro experimental admin theme, if you take a look at the tools being used here, they actually use a number of JavaScript components. The reason to that is because, well, they really make sense on running a theme, especially if you want a theme that's snappy and super fast. So someone recommended that, hey, let's make a React admin theme. So everything just running on the add into the REST API or JSON configuration API. So that could probably come in for things like the admin theme. But just like the question earlier about front-end frameworks, probably what we would want to watch out for is, are we getting demand for creating headless CMS kind of work so that we could upskill in terms of doing front end side by side with Drupal theming? I guess that's what I would insert. So no significant changes, rather just incremental changes into upgrades, and then probably some additional skills required because of the trends in modern web development, I guess. That's what I have. Okay, so really nice, good question. That's really good. I have here, thank you too, Martin. I have here, is there recommended admin theme for content editors? They like the ease of use and admin side of WordPress. Okay. Um, this is gonna be funny. There's actually a theme called Credit Due. I'm gonna show this, right? Um, so this, oh, I think it's credit underscore due. Okay, if you look at this theme, it's funny because it's actually the WordPress admin theme. So someone made an effort to actually create and replicate the admin theme of WordPress into Drupal. It's kind of funny that someone did this, and they explained why they did this because they have actually a client who really have a hard time on using anything else, right? So someone made that. So is there a theme easy for content editors? If it's specific for WordPress, I'd probably say here. However, easy for content editors, I think, is subjective depending on the project. For example, I have a project in WordPress where they really hate the admin UI of WordPress because there's a lot of distraction, especially if they have a lot of plugins installed, right? And if you compare that to Drupal, if you only have access to content, you cannot see these other um, options here. If your role is just a content editor, you'll just see content, and that's all you will have. You'll have the button to add content. You have a dashboard of content. You have probably here a view where you can see your files, which is here. Everything is in a single dashboard. For me, that feels more easier to transition it to. I know that change is always something difficult to enact with to any project or any customer. Um, but it really depends on user, and we need to come up with way to creatively transition what you think is really best. I think that admin themes is meant for no distractions. So if there's a theme that could really easily give you that, that would be good. Um, and to specifically answer that, if there's a recommended admin theme, so I think um, that distribution called Thunder. Okay, so there's a distribution called Thunder. So Thunder is actually a news publishing distribution in Drupal. So they've figured out how to make it nice for um, content editors. So here's the photo. If this doesn't look good, well, they had their own decisions to make. So I guess, and that's the good thing about um, Drupal. In WordPress, you can't get away with how the WP admin work unless you hack on it or come up with plugins. Here by default, you can really customize it. Hear out your customer, ask them why they think your theme doesn't look good with their editing experience, then configure it. So I think that's a really nice proposition. And it is really nice for customers who wants to come up with a custom fit kind of experience instead of an out of a box solution. And sometimes they're just forced to use that because they don't have any choice. This in Drupal, you definitely always have a choice. Okay, super nice question. I was hoping that was something we could ask. It's really good. So Thunder admin theme, probably, and there's other private distributions out there that you could try out. Wow, these are all amazing questions, guys. Thank you, thank you. I hope you are not shy to speak out in the call. Welcome to Drupal Filipinas podcast. So I was hoping you guys can speak up too. Anyway, keep them coming. We still have time, I think. We're scheduled until 5. If you still have questions, feel free to do so. If you don't have any questions though, so I think the next question now is the recording in the slides. So the answer is yes. What we'll do is we'll collect all of the slides and the recording and upload them into the website once it's done. So if you go to the website, you can see the schedule view. The schedule view actually has a specific page for every session. So if you click on a specific schedule for like this one, it has its own specific page that you can view, and you'd be able to see there as we collect them one by one. So today I want to upload once I have the recording, but I think that would take a couple of hours because of Zoom. Once we have it, we'll upload it to YouTube and we'll have it together. So when's the earliest time you'll probably get these recorded sessions and the slides? That depends on how fast Zoom records, and we can edit or upload the videos in YouTube, I guess. But we'll definitely send out a notice to all participants, similar way to we have pointed out this notice here that all our sessions are uploaded. We'll just need time to do that, but we'll definitely have it. Okay, so copy and copy. So you will be able to watch it online. Yes, so question here was what is the admin theme can be customized as well? Yes, so the admin theme is actually a separate file itself. If you notice, so there's a theme for admin, there's a theme for public facing customers. The only thing that I answered earlier was you cannot have two themes for public facing customers or two themes for admin. So in this case, you can see in my project, or I think it's in the other one, there's actually an admin theme, or the adminimal theme file is actually here. Let me show you this one. Okay. So this is a complete theme meant for the administration only. Okay, so good. That's the question from Steph. Admin theme customized as well. Yes. Same way. So next question, Dinesh. How can we access variables of one twig in another twig? Example, access site name variable in block twig. So it's not really a site name variable from one twig. A variable is accessible to any twig file. So if you would read the twig list of templates, and if you get deeper with twig templating, you could see that twig is simply just pulling everything Drupal has to offer. And the only reason why you are creating multiple twig templates is to come up with a way to organize your template. You can probably think of it similar to my Radix example earlier, where I have here a bunch of SAS files instead of one super huge CSS file. So in Twig, everything is accessible for Drupal, and the only reason why you're splitting them into multiple Twig blocks or thing is because you want to organize what you want to display. And if you want to display the title of the whole site in like a block, you can do that. And you can just use the default block for it. You can definitely do that. So I think that for the question there, it's not one twig to another twig. It's actually accessing Drupal. You can access available things for Drupal. Obviously, in the context of custom content, right? I think you would not build something like that way. You'd probably create, instead of accessing relationship of values, like one block has a field related to one block or one content to other content. Relationship is not meant in the theme, but rather meant into site building. That's why we create fields that has references. And once that is set, you just create a twig file that accesses the content where it has relationship, and you don't need to do some extra special step there to access the field because it's already ready available for that node block or whatever section you're trying to twig or create a twig file for. Okay. So no, it's not about reaching each other's twig file, but rather reaching whatever Drupal has to offer in your template that you're trying to build. Okay, I hope I was able to answer that, Dinesh. I was able to answer that. And thanks for that question. That's a good one. So any other question for theming? Okay. Okay. I'm gonna go once. I'm gonna go twice. So this doesn't mean that you cannot ask questions, guys. So after this, you can go to the Philippine Drupal users group Facebook page. We also have a Slack that we could use, and you should be able to reach us on the Drupal Pilipinas Slack that we just sent to you guys the other day. Uh, don't hesitate to ask questions. Just don't feel a bit sad if these folks weren't able to answer you immediately, but someone will definitely answer. So just give time and it will happen. Oh, we have a final question. Is there a drag and drop like theme for Drupal? There is a module that lets you do that. So aside from layout builder trying to become like that, so the way it's being implemented now is through layout builder. But is there a theme that does drag and drop? There is. I remember glazed Drupal glazed page builder. I think they have a number of CMS. So when you just type page builder or drag and drop, you can really find a lot of things. But just take note if they are new or they're updated. Maybe it could still work, maybe not, but I think you can see something here. So try to double check if it's it's in an old version of Drupal 8. So I don't know if I could recommend it, but there's probably one out there. But what we're actually doing right now in the community is not relying on a theme, but rather we're trying to build the layout builder that to come up with a better presentation. You can actually find work on layout builder issue queue, where people are trying to, I think it's called drag and drop, that they want to improve the drag and drop experience, not just for the blocks on the tools. Because if you remember, if I was using layout builder earlier, I'm just seeing fields rather than nice icons or something. So they want to improve that. So maybe you'd like to wait or contribute into the layout builder core module, which is going to be better supported instead of themes. So if you're looking for Gutenberg-like experience, that's all we got, that Gutenberg sample here. I saw a theme called, I don't know if some of you are WordPress users here. There's actually a theme called Elementor. Sorry, not a theme, a module called Elementor that actually does the same thing. But it's not working pretty well because it's like 3 years old, but it still works. Okay, here. Do you have or do you recommend to build themes from scratch? Okay, I think the question would be better if when do you think you can build theme from scratch? I think that's the question. Okay. First, I think you would build a theme from scratch if you are really into optimization. And by that, I mean you want to have to generate the smallest markup, the smallest footprint of CSS and JavaScript files. If you want to come up with a theme that like 50 KB only of CSS and JavaScript files combined together. I don't think you can build that if you are using like a base theme, because base themes build a bunch of stuff to be reused, and a bunch of stuff sometimes they are not used. So if you are into trying to build a really optimized site, cutting edge size, you would probably achieve that using a custom theme. You really have control. You can use minification. You can have just maybe one CSS file and maybe just one JavaScript file, and that's all you need. That's probably the only time I'd create a theme from scratch. Also, aside from that, if you have a lot of time to make a project, because uh, even the masters are recommending to create or use base themes, because sometimes you forget things, sometimes you still need time to generate things, and it's really about you having the time to build it. You will be probably super fast in the future, but um, I would rather give you much more time to do like other stuff. If you can actually just reuse. There's a saying that you don't want to reinvent the wheel. So we're not really inventing the wheel here, but just try to reuse as much as possible, or build on the top of giants, as they call it. Okay, so thanks, Mark, for that question. So keep them coming. Still have 10 minutes. Let's make the best out of Drupal Camp. And while we're waiting for questions, I really thank everyone who have joined here, to have supported us in this event. And as we are trying to rebuild and see more people in the community. So last year we didn't have Drupal Camp. We hope that we will be able to get more people to run Drupal and also help us with organizing Drupal. We really need people who would help us build the site, who are themers. So your site here, we took some time. We have a lot of room for improvement for the site here. So we are looking forward for folks who want to join us on um, building Drupal camp as well and be part of the community. So we're looking for organizers or volunteers who can promote and all that. Okay, question here. Do you have or can you do horizontal scaling in Drupal using EC2? The answer is yes. So actually, Pantheon is a very good example of horizontal scaling. So Pantheon is running on containers. So that's a little bit of um, uh, a number for, let's say, EC2. So if you have multiple servers, you want to point multiple servers into one database, that's definitely possible. We have done that a number of times with different projects when I was with HP. And when I went and see Pantheon, they were running like that by default. So Drupal is being used into like 4 app servers. And there are times that when we had clients that they have a lot of traffic, we would bump them into 50 application servers. And then they go to a database, all synced and running the same code base, and nothing is really having problems. You can mount file system mounts that you could share to upload your content, images, private files, or everything that under the media assets kind of thing. So you can definitely do that. You can probably look around for some AWS marketplace recipes for Drupal horizontal scaling. Sometimes they call it high availability tools, or HA. But yeah, definitely one of the first tenets why Drupal was made was to make this horizontally scalable. So yeah. Thanks for the question, Jerry. At least a question that closer to my heart. I'm doing more of that in my work in Pantheon. So when will you share this video in your YouTube channel? As soon as possible. I think if we are able to download all the videos from Zoom by Monday, and we are gonna upload and maybe edit a bit of the videos by until Wednesday, based on our free time. I'm hoping we have free time. The earliest probably would be next week. We'll be able to have all our videos in YouTube channel. So yeah, we're gonna upload them to YouTube. You will see that. There's also a copy of it in Zoom. We could probably send that out to folks because it's password protected anyway. We'll figure it out after the event, but definitely we'll share it to you guys soon. Okay, so if I guess that's it for everyone. I really appreciate you guys with this Q&A. I just really hope that you guys were able to learn something new. And in this time of staying home and doing probably lesser, it's really nice to see people who are going to view Drupal as another skill um, uh, to get with. And I really appreciate you guys joining us with him. Okay, so thank you everyone. This last question I'm gonna answer you, Anna, separately. Um, I'm gonna send an email to you instead. I don't have an answer to that right now. Okay, so thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow for the keynotes and sessions. We have an exciting lineup. We have folks all over the world coming in to join us for Drupal Camp Manila. Please take time to join, pick your sessions, try it out. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you guys. Bye bye.